Morning, and welcome to another episode of The Pajama Philosopher. Really is morning, still a bit drowsy. Need to sip my coffee to stay awake. If you've seen my earlier videos, you'd have noticed that the entire collection of this series, the videos are named like the segments of a book, and that's deliberate. It's because this video series is designed to accompany the book I'm writing called GRUBI, Green Universal Basic Income, a Rational Manifesto for Life. That's a book on political economy that's trying in its own deliberately economical way to create a new kind of philosophy for political economy that's rooted in science and rationality and sanity, for want of a better word, and tries to avoid a lot of the extremism and dogma that we are finding taking root in many parts of the world, and also to try and address the sort of ideological drift that the world seems to have found itself in, which is rather unfortunate because it's not like many of the ideologies espoused in the world are lacking in merit. I think it's just that there's too much leaning towards dogma and absolutism, and sometimes superstition and retrogressive beliefs, atavistic beliefs that are contributing to what I see as the world adrift and the post Fukuyama world adrift period we seem to be going through now. Anyway, so coming back to the book, today's video is going to be titled Preface, Acknowledgements, and Contents as the next three segments of my book, and I'll just jump straight into it. So when we preface GRUBI, that's written almost deliberately in the style of a political manifesto that's designed to be consumed by the general public and written in short, big letter form, sort of like, and designed with nice illustrations and almost to be like, smart, thinking person's coffee table book, talking about the key areas of life and society and politics and economics, and that we have to kind of address. You'll find that, like any political manifesto, it returns to very common themes. I mean, we nearly every political system we have come up with, and any system of political economy tends to want to address the same kind of things. So it's like, how do we organize an economy so that we maximize economic growth, but eradicate poverty, provide social upward mobility for everyone, leaves people with a sense of purpose in their lives, and doesn't destroy the planet. And so it all comes back to this idea of almost utopian way of organizing society. What's the optimal way to organize society? I think is, and the economy is the fundamental question of every political ideology out there. And most of the dominant political ideologies have come up with some elements of merit in doing these things. So in today's world, where new challenges like the rise of artificial intelligence taking away people's jobs and uh, tremendous growth in wealth inequality, questions about the social mobility of citizens within nations and the social mobility of entire nations to leave the ranks of the poor or underdeveloped world and join the ranks of the developed world, enjoying high quality standards of living without totally destroying the planet and rendering it unlivable. All these existential questions are very topical right now. And so GRUBI is a book that's written for the now, and it's a book that is not intended to generate fervor, no workers of the world unite type of fervor generating manifestos for life. I've really tried to deliberately come up with a text that's very rational, grounded, based in reality, and avoided the temptations that political philosophers often have to succumb to that kind of fervor generating rhetoric and the over politicization of what should be practical matters that are dealt with in rational, scientific, and pragmatic ways. So I think you'll find that to be a common recurring theme in my book. And that segues nicely into the acknowledgements, because I decided that all aspiring authors think of the people they want to thank, and their grandma and their mom and their wife and their girlfriend, etc. And I thought, okay, that's done. That's been done. That's very like well, I don't want to be rude about it, but it's kind of cliche. It's been done by everyone. I thought it would be nice to try and do something slightly different. And what's the one thing I think we all can agree we have to thank for our being here? Well, it's the laws of physics. And I think it's worth acknowledging the laws of physics, not just in a almost not in a pretentious way to try and sound profound, but because as this book goes on, I want to try and emphasize, maybe throw into sharp relief, the extent to which the laws of physics aren't incorporated into our political and economic thinking. And I think that's a big mistake. I also think it's a big opportunity, because when we do that, it kind of helps address a lot of the ideological conflict that tends to polarize the left and the right, by bringing in some very objective scientific truths that everyone can relate to and everyone can kind of acquiesce to and everyone can kind of accept. And it's not about the weaponization of science to drive a political agenda and that instrumental use of science and pseudoscience that we sometimes see from both the left and the right. It's not about that. I'll try not to preempt too much of the contents of what I'm going to write. And the kind of audience I imagine would take much of an interest in these videos would probably have watched things like the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I think it was on Vice. And we'll see some allusion to the incorporation of the laws of physics into political economic thinking, into political economy and political philosophy. More to the point, the subtitle of the GRUBI book is A Rational Manifesto for Life, which is an extremely innocent sounding, very innocuous, almost staid statement, very almost boring, right? But I think it might be surprising just how pregnant with meaning that simple sentence can be. To come up with a reason based philosophy for life that's grounded in the science and reality of the universe, and that tells us the truth about very difficult topics like why do we even exist? How do we find meaning in what can look like a purposeless universe hurtling towards heat death, the ultimate nihilism. So how do you resolve the realities of the universe that science presents us with all the moral and emotional and philosophical questions that the human mind feels, and the desire, the natural desire of the human mind to give purpose to its existence and live a happy life, right? So I think that even though in the past science may have been seen to be an enemy of these softer social sciences of philosophy and economics and politics, there's lots of ways in which science and the scientific method can teach these other fields to think about life that I think are constructive and that I've tried to condense into this book. So that's our acknowledgements, and next we get our table of contents. So I'll go through quickly. GRUBI is organized into 12 chapters. So I'll just go through them one by one and say a little something about each of them. So the first chapter I've already kind of hinted about. It's Man's Search for Meaning, a scientific approach. So how does man come up with a purpose for life that's not grounded in the superstitious beliefs of the past, for example, or in extremist ideologies like Nazism or whatever the crazy ideology we've mistakenly followed in our history and things like that. So that's the first chapter. Second chapter is the 10 principles. So in this, I outline the 10 principles that I think bound a philosophy for political economy that hope to point us in the direction of this utopian society we would, I presume, would all like to live in, but stays grounded in reality and isn't all fanciful, while taking into account current new challenges brought about by technologies like AI and globalization and climate and issues like climate change and the need to protect the only biosphere with life that we found in the universe so far, right? And so the next the next 10 chapters are one each of the 10 principles, directing us towards what I call this benign political economy, a political economy that makes us biosphere symbiotes and not biosphere pathogens. And that also relates very closely to the overall philosophy of life that this manifesto tries to talk about and tries to promote, extend, share with people, call it what you will. And so I'll quickly enumerate the 10 principles, wrap up this video, and then in the next videos, we can start going through each chapter one by one in more detail. So our 10 principles are, sorry, mosquitoes, recall democracy, minimal government, minimal taxation, maximum liberalization, maximum privatization, free trade, independent judiciaries, independent central banks, property rights, and then lastly, basic welfare. So far, so boring. So far, so maybe very neoliberal sounding, but it's not really. And when we come into the topics of basic welfare, you'll see how it all balances out against all the previous things that seem very pro laissez-faire and not enough talk about how we achieve the economic aspirations for everybody really in society without turning the planet into a hellhole and without creating unconscionable inequalities of wealth, and most importantly, like how we take care of giving people purpose and meaning in this new world where a lot of work is going to go the way of automation, including creative work. One of the themes in the GRUBI book is that for every theme I come up with, you'll notice this from the thumbnails on the videos, I use an AI generated art to illustrate that theme. And I think that in a sense hits to the kind of world we're going into, because already creative people, people who fields which were once thought to be way outside the remit of automation and computerization, and AI would never be able to be an artist or a singer. Well, no, we've already got AI singers, we've got AI rappers, we've got AI artists, and who knows where this brave new world takes us. So that's why I use that motive to illustrate my content and illustrate my work. So next few videos, we'll jump into it properly. We'll get into each one of these chapters. I think the chapter one, Man's Search for Meaning, a Scientific Approach, will set up a lot of the framework for the chapters that come in between, chapters 2 to 11. And I think the chapter 12 will really close it up, showing us our sort of relationship to the biosphere and how we can use scientific thinking to rationalize our being biosphere symbiotes, which then segues nicely into take care of all the things, the externalities that economic growth and the levels of production necessary to give everyone in the world an out of absolute poverty standard of living would take. So I think it's going to be an interesting journey. I think I'll enjoy going on this journey with you, and I hope you do enjoy going on this journey with me. So yeah, see you in the next videos, and have a good day.